Okay, let's see if we are live. I think we should be on. What I wanted to talk about today is recently on Twitter. Let me just open up Twitter very quickly. I did a poll because I haven't noticed a lot of YouTubers talking about this. So let me just go ahead and go to my latest Twitter poll. And I asked everyone if they had checked out the new impressions and click through information in the new Creator Studio beta. And most people, and I mean, there's not a whole lot of responses yet, but of the 11 people who have voted, most people voted that they hadn't checked it yet. And then even for the people who had, it's kind of split between people who find the feature pretty cool and people who are confused about the feature. So I wanted to kind of do a very quick walkthrough of these new features and why it can be really helpful for YouTube creators. Since I know that I have a lot of those of you who are following me. So the first thing that I want to kind of jump into is to say that there was this article that this kind of research paper that YouTube had in 2016 that I've kind of pulled up here, Deep Neural Networks for YouTube Recommendations. And it's a lot of math, but the main thing is it's discussing kind of from a theoretical perspective how YouTube decides kind of what gets put where on the platform, whether it's search, recommended videos, homepage, etc. And so it describes about a couple of things. So there's a video corpus which is incredibly large. Like there's just think YouTube keeps on coming up with these astronomical numbers of videos that get uploaded every minute, every day, that sort of thing. So they have this video corpus of millions and they're trying to generate candidates to get down to hundreds. And then they need to rank dozens. So like if you have a YouTube search page, you need to go through the millions of videos, figure out which videos would be relevant for that search page, and then what place to rank them. And so a lot of you, if you have been paying attention to the YouTube scene, will know about you need to get your keywords right. For example, you need to have your tags, your title, your description right. But if you read through this, and again, there's a lot of math, the idea here is that it's a multi-stage process. And so while metadata like tags, titles, and descriptions are really good for candidate generation, they had interesting lines for the ranking part, like what determines what gets to be first place or second place or whatever. And this ranking part, let me just kind of jump over here so you can see that part. I think it was in, I think I've already passed it. I think it was in ranking feature representation or ranking. And so what they say here, and I'll just read the important parts because it's relevant to us. The primary role of ranking is to use impression data to specialize and calibrate candidate predictions for the particular user interface. Um, for example, a user may watch a given video with high probability generally, but is unlikely to click on the specific homepage impression due to the choice of thumbnail image. Interesting. Then they say, um, we use a deep neural network with similar architecture as candidate generation to assign an independent score to each video impression using blah, blah, blah. The list of videos is then sorted by this score and returned to the user. Our final ranking objective is constantly being tuned based off of live A/B testing results, but is generally a simple function of expected watch time per impression. So what YouTube does is it takes all these videos and it says, okay, out of these millions of videos, we think that videos that have X in the title or in the description or in the tags would be useful for if someone is searching for a particular keyword. But how to rank those? And it looks at expected watch time per impression. Up until this point, we've been able to see watch time data. That's something that YouTube has shown us. And I feel like I've lost my video here. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut me out because it doesn't even matter anyway. And yeah, so no big deal there. You should still hear me. So anyways, we've known watch time for a long time, but recently in the beta Creator Studio, they have given us brand new I mean, it's kind of redesigned the way that the beta Creator Studio works in the first place, but they've given us these tabs that show reach viewers, and this shows impressions click-through rate, views, and unique viewers, which is very interesting. We've never had this kind of information before. And on this same page, they have this thing that they call the impressions funnel, which shows us from impressions to views to watch time. And what I wanted to discuss is that this is the sort of thing that YouTube has been discussing. And now we kind of have the tools to understand from YouTube's perspective, how do they feel, how do they analyze what is to them a good video versus a not so good video. And so let's kind of go through because they have a few help articles about this. And so when they first released this impressions data, they came out with this a series of help articles. So measure your video reach on YouTube. Impressions are how many times your thumbnails were shown to viewers on youtube.com. And then your impressions can be in several different traffic sources, which we'll get to a little bit later. From there, depending on how viewers respond, they'll either, skip past your video or they'll click on it. And the ratio of impressions to how many people clicked is the click-through rate. We'll get to unique viewers a little bit later. So here you'll note that impressions aren't measured for every single traffic source. It's only registered for certain YouTube traffic sources according to certain criteria. So impressions are registered on the search results page, the YouTube homepage, feeds such as the subscriptions page, trending page, history, and watch later, and then the suggested videos, which are the sidebar of videos that you can watch on after any given video, and then videos and playlists. So those are most of the major internal YouTube sources. There are a few that are internal to YouTube that are not mentioned, and they're on this side over here. So for example, YouTube mobile website apparently does not register impressions. External websites and apps do not. So any links from outside YouTube's not going to know who saw where you shared your video to Twitter at this time. I mean, maybe they'll find something out later. Content within the video player is not considered for impressions. So for example, cards and end screens or the watch next grid, those are not counted. So suggested videos would be like videos to the side, but the videos that show up in that grid at the end, that does not count as impressions. And then they have things like push notifications don't count as impressions, email notifications don't. Anything that's playing in the background tab does not count as an impression because it has to be visible to you. And then if a thumbnail is less than 50% visible or visible for less than 1 second, it is also not counted for impressions. And there's another page about using this and that sort of thing. So what I wanted to kind of talk through is because I know a lot of people, don't really understand this. I want to just walk through this very quickly. First of all, a lot of you should already have access to the Creator Studio beta. I believe that they've tried making this a default for a lot of people, and so you may have opted out. And if you've opted out, then you'll still see the old view. So let me just go to the old view very quickly. And you will see in the old view, if you come down to this blue button, YouTube Studio Beta, that'll take you to the Studio Beta, and it's studio.youtube.com. They have a new little dashboard thing, which is kind of interesting. But we want to come to analytics. And so, as I mentioned before, they've kind of changed the layout of this analytics in terms of the tabs that are available. And I think that it's really helpful in terms of thinking about your videos from throughout its entire YouTube lifecycle. So of course you have this overview, which just kind of explains things in a general level. But if you want to think about your videos over their entire life cycle, then what you'd be looking at is you would start with reaching the viewers. And so that's everywhere that YouTube puts your thumbnail as an impression. And then a certain percentage of those people are going to click down, and that's your click-through rate. And that click-through rate is going to create views, of which some of those views are from unique viewers and some of those are from repeat viewers. From there, once you've reached the videos, the question is, how much are you interesting them? So your video may be a certain length, but how much watch time are you generating? So this is where they've moved, kind of seeing things like watch time and average view duration. And you can see if you're going up or down in a given time period. So once you've gotten those viewers and they're watching your content, The question is, how well are you building an audience based off that? So it brings that unique viewers um, concept that is also new from the Reach Viewers tab. And it says, okay, so of all the unique people who watched videos on your channel, how many did they watch on average? And how many subscribers are your videos generating? And so this is what this tab will kind of explain. And then you can see earn revenues if that's something that is important to you or if that's something that you have access to. But I wanted to focus on reach videos because I wanted to focus on the relationship between impressions and impressions click through rate, this impressions funnel, and how we can use it. So currently, I am using this based off of a channel wide basis, but you could also go through this on a video specific basis, which I'll actually go through in a little bit. And you can change the dates on this, but just be aware that impressions data is not available before January 1st, 2018. So if I went to do 365 days, you'll see that it's just there for unique viewers. It has some information. For views, it of course has all the information, but for click through rate, nothing before January 1st. And then for impressions, nothing before January 1st. No big deal. 90 days is a lot of information to use, so we can actually work with that fairly well. Um, so you could see your traffic sources, and then this is watch time. This is people who have actually clicked through and how much they actually watch. One thing that I've noticed that I'm trying to get them to fix is there seems to be a bug where when you change your calendar date, it doesn't actually change the percents in the lower figures. Only changes this top graph. So 28 days, and I changed it to 90 days, and my traffic sources were the same. So if you refresh this page, then it'll actually update to the right 90-day traffic. So you'll see that over 90 days, my suggested videos were only 44%. But I want to talk about the, and this also applies to this impressions. So it's showing my 28 days instead of my 90 days. So you can see here that it starts out, this impressions funnel starts out with your impressions data. And if you kind of hover over it, it'll tell you some things like this is what we already discussed, how often your video thumbnails were shown to viewers. But here you can see kind of video impressions traffic sources, and it kind of breaks it out into the orange category and then the kind of the gray category. The orange category represents YouTube recommending your content, and it describes it into two different places, your watch page or homepage. So watch page is analogous to suggested videos. Let me just kind of show you what I mean there. If I go to a YouTube video, like let's say today we will pick my 02 cover, Zach's. So here is search page impressions, by the way. You can see this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. This one down here would not count as an impression because I can't see half of the thumbnail. But here, now I have one click per impression. Now, I'm sure that you've already all heard this song, so I won't play it. But if you haven't, definitely pay attention to my Kirby02. Hello, people in the chat. Thanks for joining. LR Purple HD, Westlin Vasconcelos, and any others. I see that there's a couple more of you who aren't quite commenting, but that's fine. Anyways, so if I scroll down here, these are the watch page suggested videos. These would also count as impressions. And so this is not the page I wanted. I wanted this page. So it divides these into that. So you can see here that of all my impressions, around 55% are from YouTube recommending my comment either in a suggested video or on the homepage. And then 44% of impressions are from viewers seeking my content. So that would be like search page. If someone searched for Kirby02 sex cover or something, and then they saw my video thumbnail, that would be an impression from there. So from there, it calculates a click-through rate. And I'm just going to say something here. Because of the way that YouTube is counting the views, it's actually taking total views for the selected date range, not just views from impressions. So for example, I have some traffic that comes from external sources, which, as YouTube said on the other page, does not generate an impression. So if I actually took this 747,000 and multiplied it by 5.7%, it wouldn't actually equal this because there are other views that don't generate impressions. But the important thing is this 5.7% represents of all of these impressions, 5.7% of people clicked and watched at least some portion of the video. Now, is that a good number? Is that a bad number? Generally, I think, let me just find the page. One of them, yeah, here you go. Click through rate doesn't equal total views. There was one page that explained that. Yep, here we go. Half of all channels and videos on YouTube have an impressions click through rate that can range between 2% and 10%. So if they say it like this, I'm guessing that 2% is the 25th percentile and 10% is the 75th percentile. So if you're within that range, you're in a good range. So I'm at 5.7%, which is like awesome. But what's important here is when you kind of come down to this views and you come down to this watch time metric, remember in the article, it says our final ranking objective for search and suggested videos, etc., is constantly being tuned based off of live A/B testing results, but is generally a simple function of expected watch time per impression. So if you think about it, YouTube has some sort of number of for every impression that they have for your videos, they're going to expect a certain amount of watch time per that impression. So if you have an impression and someone didn't click on the video, then you're generating 0 watch time from that impression. On the other hand, if someone clicked on your video and they watched 50% of your video, well, that's 50% of watch time compared to whatever they calculated. YouTube hasn't said what the expected time is, but I'm guessing that they expect people to watch a good amount of content. The interesting thing is that it says it's watch time per impression. So the question would be, how is this affected by video length? So for example, my issue here is my videos, and this is going to be true for a lot of musicians. They tend to be within, if you go to like music videos, like 5 minutes is like, okay, that's one of a longer videos. I don't think you, yeah, 5 minutes is a longer video for me. And then if we go back to other covers like Haltman theme, that was 3 minutes. Castlevania Vampire Killer, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Then I have these short Mimi videos that are like 20 seconds. It's hard to accumulate watch time this way. On the other hand, I do live streams like this that can be 30 minutes to an hour, but people don't necessarily watch all of those. And so it kind of skews the results when we're looking at watch time as a percentage audience retention. And so you can kind of see here that my average view duration is 1 minute 44 seconds, which it says is 42%. That's going to be a mix of, my music videos, which are naturally short, or my longer form content, which are longer, but don't necessarily get as many views. Anyways, what I want to point out is what's really powerful about this is, so far I've been looking at on the channel wide page, but if you come into videos and you go to a particular video, I'm going to go into Kirby02 because it's my most recent music video. And I'm going to go into the 90 days. Now, it's mentioned before, this stuff down here isn't going to automatically update, so I have to refresh. But I'm going to come into this this reach viewers, and now I'm going to refresh so that it'll correct my traffic source and etc. data. So here's what we see. We see that we have the video was released on February 26th or whatever. And so here's the first day of impressions. And then you kind of see that it kind of drops off. And what's interesting is that impressions increases over time. This is not something I think that everyone would expect on every video. And so let me show you a different video just to show how different it can be. This is one of my more successful videos, I guess, of recent times. But if we take something like, say, Sound Drop versus DistroKid, the analysis that I did there, and we look at the reach and we go to 90 days, you'll see that it had a big number of impressions on the first day, and then it dropped off and it hadn't really been getting any more impressions ever since. And so what we can see here is that there's something going on between videos like this where YouTube looks at one video and says, hey, we're going to keep promoting this. And it looks at other videos and it says, no, we're just going to not really promote this anymore. And I think it has to do with, as they said in their article, watch time per impression. And so I think that what YouTube is doing is YouTube is looking at click-through rate, and then it's also looking at overall audience retention over the life of a video. And if the click-through rate is good and watch time is good, it will say, okay, the existing audience that saw the impressions like this video enough, they watched a good amount of it. So let's show it to other people in suggested videos. Let's show it to other people in search. Let's show it to other people in browse features. And then it says, does the impressions click-through rate maintain or does it drop? So here we can see that impressions are steadily increasing over the life of the video, whereas to the 24th, I was getting 2,000 impressions. That's even more than the day that the video was released to my subscribers. But if we look at impressions click-through rate on this other tab, we can see that I'm holding at around from 6 to 7% up to 8%, but it doesn't really drop below 5%. And as the YouTube article had said in the other page that we looked at, a good rate is between 2 and 10%. And so what YouTube is seeing is on April 24th, when it showed it to 2,000 people, 5% of those people still clicked and watched through, just the same as when it was showing just to my dedicated subscribers and fan base. And so it knows that this is a good kind of video to continue showing it to more people, because as it continues showing it to more people, people are enticed by the thumbnail and the title, and they click through and they apparently watch a good proportion. We can see that in the terms of interesting the viewers, you can see the watch time kind of, jumps, it increases over time as it's shown to more people. We can see that the lifetime retention is around 57%. So even as more time has passed, let me just open this and then kind of change the time frames of this a little bit. So this is across the entire life. Over the first 7 days, is it going to update for me? It is not going to update. I'm going to send a bug ticket to them because this really should update. Let me do 7 days, refresh, and see what happens there. Okay, so for the first 7 days, which would have included the first day of release with my YouTube subscribers, it was at 52%. So it was actually even lower than what I'm getting now. So if we go up to the last, that was last 7 days. That's the most recent 7 days, not the first 7 days. Sorry. The classic YouTube actually had a feature, and we'll actually just jump over there for a brief second. There are a few things about the new Creator Studio that I'm not a huge fan of. It's not as flexible in terms of times. So let's go back to the classic analytics just very briefly so I can show you guys something. And I want to do 0-2. You can also look up specific videos here. And what we can do here is instead of doing the last, we can do the first 90 days, the first 28 days, the first 7 days. So I'm going to come to this first 7 days and then do audience retention. And again, I'm going to turn that off. In the first 7 days of the video, I had 72% retention on this video. So what that means is my core subscribers, the ones who saw this video first, they watched it an average of 72%. And what you can actually see is that doesn't mean that they got to 72% and that then they stopped watching. Realistically, around 58% of them were there to the end of the video. It's just that some people watched over and over at the beginning, and so the average is 72%. This is like an outstanding retention rate. But as you change the time frame and you go to first, say, 28 days, you can see that the retention decreases. Because what this means is that as time passes, YouTube is now showing your video to non-subscribers who aren't necessarily going to know what your content is about, and so they might not be as interested. And this is what you actually see here. This steep decrease here represents people who clicked immediately, and then they decided, nah, I didn't really want to watch this. But once people got in, around 12 seconds, they were pretty much set for the rest of the video. This is like a really good audience retention, by the way. So like, if you don't have this, like, that's okay. Like if you go to relative audience retention, which shows audience retention compared to other videos of the same length here, then you can see that I'm pretty much at high for the entire video of this, because it's like, this is just a crazy audience retention. And then as we continue on, we can do lifetime for this video to get back to the 58% that it's kind of settled at. And so I'll show you another way that you can kind of verify this kind of thing that I was saying. You can go to traffic sources here, and we're showing it by lifetime, and you'll see that at the first few days, you see this red here that says browse features. I'm just going to go and jump into browse features and show you that browse features includes two major sources. It includes your subscriptions tab, this red spike, and it includes the homepage, which has a smaller amount over the rest of the time. So you can see that that 72% was really driven by my subscribers watching in the first few days. But over time, as the video has been shown to more people, it's been shown to more people via suggested video, this purple line, this purple area. And people have been apparently enjoying this video very, very much. So I'm really excited for all the people who found this video and who have been clicking through and have been watching it. So I'm going to come back over to the new studio, just kind of show you this. We can see first and second day impressions. And so I actually think that there's a very interesting experiment that you guys can do. Let me just answer a few comments since I see that we have a few more people in the chat. Thanks. So glad that you like the Chrono Trigger music adaptation. I hope to get back to the Chrono Trigger soundtrack at some time. Thanks, Daniel. Glad you find it informative. I definitely feel like this is something that every YouTube creator should be paying attention to. Let me keep on reading. Oh man, I'm so flattered that people think that this is one of the best channels on YouTube. I don't know about that, but it seems like based off of how my recent videos have been doing, YouTube is also recognizing me just a little bit. As you can see, it's showing my impressions to more people. Hey, Alex Vale, glad to see you in here as well. You're blowing up too, so it would be very interesting to see your impressions data. Although I think that since you've been mentioned by other channels, as I mentioned earlier in the session, YouTube doesn't necessarily count impressions from every traffic source, so it might be interesting that you wouldn't see that. I eventually want to do Star Allies. Unfortunately, because of the way that I do videos, and I do the story with the video, I want to wait a little bit because people get really upset about spoilers from new games. So if I do the older games, then it's fine. But if I do newer games, then people get super upset. So I will have to wait on Star Allies, probably. Let me see. I lost my video recording a little bit in the stream. So let me see if I can get that back in here. And then let me try. No. No. I thought I could get myself back. It's like my camera is frozen, so it's like it doesn't let me see myself. It's weird. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to get back into the swing of things here. What I wanted to show here, though, is so this is a video that's doing absolutely fantastically. Like YouTube is showing the impressions to more people, and so watch time is increasing. Click-through rate is holding steady. So YouTube knows if we show it to more people, they're going to still enjoy it. They're going to still watch a good portion of the video. And plus, this video was already longer than my normal videos anyway. It's around 5 minutes, whereas a lot of my other covers are only 3 minutes or less. So because I'm getting 50% of 5 minutes versus say 50% of 3 minutes, that contributes more watch time per view. And so that probably plays into YouTube's expected watch time per impression that they use to determine the rankings. I have a question. I play flute. So what is the highest note on sax? Flute is 3rd octave B flat. Okay, so the first thing I have to say is sax is a transposing instrument. And so in E flat, and then the second thing I have to say is sax has altissimo, which means we can play overtones that are way outside of our range. But typically for an E flat alto sax, the highest note, and this is not in concert pitch, so you'll have to convert it to concert pitch, is the F above the bar, F above the bar lines. And if you can convert between E flat and C, then have fun with that. But good sax players who are not me can do altissimo and go way, way, way above. So let me get back into this just for a quick moment. So you can see here that I had the impressions on this that are kind of going up. Click-through rate is maintaining, and I have good watch time. But what about this other video, DistroKid versus SoundDrop, where the impressions were high at the beginning, but then it didn't do so well after that. Well, you can see here that in the impressions funnel, there are, obviously much less impressions. Let me actually uh, do a refresh to make sure that it's actually pulling the last 90 days and not just the last 28 days, since there seems to be that bug. Yep, it was only pulling the last 28 days. So if I pull in the full 90 days of this video, of course, the impressions are lower, but there are fewer impressions from YouTube recommending my content. So more people are finding it through other sources. Unfortunately, check this out. The impressions from search make up 77% of the total impressions per this video. There's only a 2.6% click-through rate, and my watch time from search is only 9%, whereas most of it came from browse features, which I'm guessing is the search, or not the search, but the subscriptions page at the beginning, or external, because I've been linking this to Twitter and other people, and that doesn't count for impressions data. So from YouTube's perspective, they see, okay, when people watch, they generally watch around 43%. That's pretty good. That's 3 minutes of watch time. But when we try to recommend this to people on the various places, they didn't really watch. So they didn't watch in suggested videos. They didn't watch in a homepage, really. We have a lot of impressions from search, but search watch time is not that high. And so that's something where the question for me would be, why is that happening? Now, impressions click-through rate is dependent on basically psychology, human psychology. It's of all of the thumbnails that appear in a given place, which is the most engaging for the viewer. And so here, if you look at videos here, the only thing you know about a video is the title and the thumbnail. And if we do a search, we get one additional piece of information. But if you look at the homepage, title, thumbnail. If we go, let's search Kirby cover. The only thing we know is the title, the thumbnail, but we get the additional piece of like the first 2 lines of the description. And so as a creator, the most important thing for you to improve your click-through rate is to improve your titles and your thumbnails, so that when someone is just kind of scrolling through, and these thumbnails can be super small, like here they're relatively big, but here they're a lot smaller. And so they have to know, what is the video going to be? What should they expect? And then that's how you win this click. Like here, yeah, you can definitely read it. You can understand what's going on. It's very colorful. That's why I think this is one of my most successful videos on this channel to date. And it gets up next, the top result on all of my videos pretty much, because YouTube knows it's very colorful, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then what you'd want to do is you'd really want to compare to these other thumbnails, and you'd want to look and see, is my video thumbnail at least as readable or as catchy as any of these other ones? And the data quite simply doesn't lie. If your thumbnails aren't very catchy, then your click-through rate will suffer. And so because we have this information and we can see click-through rate on a day-by-day basis, this allows us to do really fun things. We can do our own testing. We can upload a video with one thumbnail, and then we could try changing the thumbnail and then seeing what's the click-through rate on that second day. And so I am looking forward to when YouTube releases click-through rate and impressions data to tools like TubeBuddy or vidIQ, because TubeBuddy, once they have this information, I'm sure that they'll have an A/B testing tool that includes impression and click-through rate. Currently, they have it in their highest tier, their legend tier, but it doesn't have click-through rate or impressions data because YouTube hasn't made that available to developers yet. But as soon as they do, I fully expect YouTube to have that. And then another thing, Morning Fame. This is another third-party tool that I like to use that kind of summarizes a lot of the analytics you have here. And so I need to talk with the creator of it about their thumbnail tool, because I know, let me think about this. I know they have a thumbnail tool for beta review, their beta review feature, which is not available to everyone. So I was looking up, Terrace Music the other day. I didn't want to go there. I want to go to the analysis. And on the thumbnail tab, it says, do the thumbnails have a consistent look? That's important because when people are seeing your videos next to each other, if they know to identify your thumbnails with you, then you can keep them coming back to your channel. And then the second thing that it does that I think is really genius, and they need to, apply this everywhere, is it shows thumbnails at every single size that they would show up. So you can see here, search on a phone or suggested on desktop have thumbnails that are this small. And so you'd want to check to see, is your text still readable at this size? If it isn't, then you might be hurting your search performance on phone. You might be hurting your suggested performance on phone and desktop. But if you're designing thumbnails that are clear and readable at all of these different types, at all these different sizes, then you're probably going to have a good click-through rate, and then you've won half the battle. Now, if your video's garbage, then you're going to have that click-through rate, and then no one's going to watch any of that video. That's what we call clickbait, and that's not good, right? So that's why I think that YouTube is kind of smart in that they're comparing, for their ranking perspective, expected watch time per impression. And they actually say at the very next sentence, ranking by click-through rate often promotes deceptive videos that the user does not complete, whereas watch time better captures engagement. And so as long as your videos are producing a good average view duration, which again, as we looked on 0.2, this is fantastic. 60%, 57% over its lifetime. I mean, I wish I knew how to replicate that on all my videos. I'll see if I can figure out the secret. And this is a longer cover. This is about 5 minutes, and it's getting that 57%. So I'm like, wow, I need to figure out how to replicate that. And so YouTube knows it's not clickbait. It's something that when people click through, which they seem to like to click through, and even as it shows it to more people, people are still clicking through. It's still something that people will watch 60% of the way through. And so it's a good investment for YouTube to keep on promoting this. And so you're going to want to think, if you're already getting good audience retention, but your click-through rate isn't that good, that's just a sign of you're making good content, but you need to improve your thumbnails. Yeah, like Ro says, if your video is bad, you won't get views. You might get views, but you won't get watch time. And so your views will be high, your watch time will be garbage, and therefore YouTube will stop promoting your video. Very, very important to remember all of these different factors together. YouTube's new beta has a lot of the same tools of the old beta, but as I did on this little stream, I like to go back to the old beta because there are still a few things that I really like from it, like the audience retention. You can see this in the new beta, so that's not a big deal. But relative audience retention, which is like an amazing feature that compares your videos to others of similar length, only available in Classic so far. So I still come back to see that. And as we did before, we saw before that there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different date ranges so far in the new beta studio. But if we wanted to see, for example, first 7 days, like when the video was first released, it had amazing audience retention from my subscribers. And we can see that in the Classic Studio because they have first 7 days. You can't really see that in the beta studio. So the one thing I wanted to talk about, and that I think for any creators who are in here, this is something that a lot of people have been really complaining about. They complain that, their subscribers aren't being notified about their videos. And so I think that another thing that the impressions data really lets us to do is it really lets us to vet this out, because you can see the first day's impression and you can see the second day's impression. Now, this isn't a perfect fit because we know that even on the first day of a video, it can have more traffic than just the subscriptions page and this browse features page. But generally, and you can see this here, the first 2 days or so are gonna be majority driven by browse features, which as we dug through before, the major things in browse features are the homepage and the subscriptions tab. And for the first few days of the video, you're gonna bet that that's gonna be the subscriptions page. So what the Classic Studio shows us is the watch time here. But what we can do is, because we know that most of the watch time from the first couple of days that a video's lifetime comes from the subscriptions page, we can compare that to, in the new studio, the impressions on the first day and the first 2 days, and compare that to our subscription, our count of subscribers. And so here, let me just open up a calculator really quickly. First day impressions for 02 were 1684, and then second day impressions were 606. So let me add that together. And so that's saying that around 2,200 people saw the thumbnail across any YouTube traffic source on the first 2 days. And because I know that the majority of traffic came from the subscriptions page, that's essentially a way of saying that 2,200 subscribers saw this video in the first 2 days. Now, I have around 3,400 subscribers now. So this 2,290 out of 3,400 is around 70% of my subscriber base. And so I think that I want every creator to go through and find this out for themselves to see if there is a similar percentage here. Because, you know, I understand that not everyone's going to be checking YouTube every day. So I wouldn't expect 100% of my subscribers to check the subscriptions page every time I release a video. But I'm wondering, is 67 to 70% what people are seeing for the first 2 days? And the second thing I want to point out is, even though I had around 2,200 impressions in the first 2 days from subscribers, if we go to views, there was 200 views in the first day, and there was 73 views in the second day. So out of 2,200, and we would also, what is this? We would also be able to say that that's about reasonable, because my impressions click-through rate on the first 2 days was 6.9% and 5.3%. So let's say that's around 5.5%. 5. Is that about right? I'm a little off. I underestimated the higher impressions in this first day a little bit, because 6.9 and 5.3. Yeah, 6.9 and 5.3 would actually average to be a bit closer to 6% than to 5%, but whatever. But what we can see here is, of the 2,200 subscribers that it showed my content to the first few days, only around 300 people saw it in those first few days. And so we need to ask ourselves, is it a matter that our subscribers aren't seeing our videos in the subscriptions page? Which, again, my impressions were only around 70% of my subscriber count, so that's possible. Or is it that not every subscriber is clicking through, but YouTube counts that they've seen it? I will go through on DistroKid versus Sounddrop and show you something else that's really interesting. So first day impressions, 1,328. Second day impressions, 347. So let's do 1,348 plus 347. So this is 1,695. That's a little bit less than the 2,200 impressions from Kirby02. And so I have to ask myself, is it because people weren't going to their subscriptions page that day? Or was there a hiccup in there? Something like that. If I go and divide that, that's around 50% of my subscriber base. And so I think that by comparing these first few days of impressions to your subscriber base, we can have a better understanding of, are videos getting dramatically different impressions in their first few days? Because if they're getting dramatically different impressions, that might be evidence that there's something going on. But if there's a relative range for these videos, let me pull up a few videos to show you what I mean, that I actually think that there's a range of impressions you can expect in the first few days. So let me pick up, and we know all these videos have very different amount of views now, but if I just open up transposing, and then the YouTube comment notification. And then I want to go to reach here, and I want to go to reach here. Let me pick up 90 days. We can see 164, 1502. 164, 1502, whatever. So that's 1600. That's about the same as DistroKid versus SoundDrop. And then we can see transposing to E flat had 489 and 1599. 489 and 1599. So that's 2000. That's around what I had for 02. So I have around 1600 to 2000, 2200 impressions in the first few days. So I can generally say, and I kind of did this analysis off screen for all of the videos that I have first 2-day impressions. Like I can only go back so far because before January, like 26th, like my 90-day information doesn't show me that information. But for all of these videos, it's around 1600 to 2200 impressions in the first few days. So I can say that I'm getting around 50% to 70% of my subscribers are getting impressions in the first couple of days. So I don't know if that's a general range to expect, or if that's low, or if that's high. But one thing I can say is that there are very different results in terms of how many subscribers click through to make the first few days views, and then how many of the subscribers watch through, what percentage they're watching through, and that seems to determine what the overall video impressions will be. So if I come back into this reach views for this one, impressions were around 3%, which is a little bit lower than expected. And again, YouTube is seeing most of it's from people searching out my video, but I'm not getting a lot of traffic from search. I'm not getting a lot of traffic from people searching out my video. And so it makes sense to me that for these videos, YouTube probably wouldn't want to show them to more people anymore. So let me just get through and address a few more comments. And that was really all I had here. So I was going to end this really shortly. I'll have the archive of this for all the people who weren't able to view this, because I think that this is super critical for us as creators to think about. If we're not getting good audience retention, then we need to think about, okay, let's look at our videos in terms of relative audience retention and in terms of absolute audience retention, see where there's any drop-offs, see if we're doing anything that's causing those drop-offs. And then if we are able to improve our audience retention, if we're not getting good click-through rate, let's think about, okay, are our thumbnails really clear at small sizes? Do we have good colors? Do they pop? Are they consistent with one another? And so if those two things are true, we're getting good click-through, we're getting good watch time, we should naturally see YouTube give us more impressions, and that should help us grow as channels. So let me just go through and answer a few more questions from the comments. So Rose says, just from a brand business point of view, if you have consistent thumbs and video series content, so on, I'll think you do well. I think this is absolutely tremendous. And I want to go through my channel-wide analytics just for a moment to show you this. As you can see, for the last 28 days in my reach viewers, suggested videos were a whopping 52% of how I got watch time. And let me just show you over 90 days so you can show that this is, I've been increasing my watch time over the last 28 days, even though I've been like a bum and haven't released any real videos in like a month. But my watch time is increasing, and it's because of suggested videos being 52%. So I can come through and look at suggested videos and say, what's driving my suggested videos? And bam, Kirby, 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 Kirby everywhere. And so essentially, because I recognized this trend, I was like, okay, time to do a bunch of Kirby stuff. And that has been absolutely tremendous to me. It's like Kirby King DDD's theme is like a gateway drug, and then it leads like all these other videos, which is like amazing. So thank you, entire Kirby fan base, for paying attention. And I want to show a different thing too. I really owe it to the Kirby fan base, because if I can go into my classic analytics, into the subscriptions report, I just want to show something very quickly. Let me go to the entire channel and then do last 28 days. And let me do it in terms of a pie chart. Nope, I didn't want to do that. I want to do it by source. You can see, it's not going to let me show you that because weird stuff. But if I come into this, to drill down into this YouTube watch page, that's going to say people who subscribed when they were watching the video. And so if I jump into that, you can see, what is this 26%? 26% of the people who subscribed to me via the watch page in the last 28 days were from King DDD. And then another 15% from 02, another 14% from Haltman Theme, another 7 and 8% from Moonstruck Blossom, and then there's Homestuck, and then the rest is like every other video. So like, this is pretty tremendous, guys. Like, if you can get on a niche, and I know that a couple of years ago for me, that was Undertale. So I guess like if I looked at my entire channel's growth, it would be like 2016 was like Undertale, and 2017, 2018 is like Kirby. And I was like, what's my next series going to be, guys? I don't understand. So I would advise you guys, look at your subscribers tab, look at watch page, and then run a pie chart to see if there are any videos in particular that are driving subscribers. If you have Morning Fame, the Morning Fame weekly report, let me just come back here and log in very quickly. The Morning Fame weekly report will also show this kind of information. So it will also point out that I have 50 gained subscribers from 02. So on a week by week basis, I'm already knowing that it's giving me good stuff here. And if I scroll down, you can see that all of my MagFest videos were like, no one really liked that. But then here's Noble Haltman, 68 subscribers. And it's like just winning me medals all over. So that's why I am continuing to do Kirby. And I hope everyone to release a new Kirby cover soon. I'm trying to get some things released officially. So there's some exciting news with that, but I'm just waiting a little bit longer. So I hope maybe by the end of this week or maybe next week to have a new cover story out for a new, not new, an older Kirby game. It will be spoilerific. So hopefully you've played the older games. I'll probably put a warning there or something so that people don't get too upset at me. So Charles Ritz asks, if I had crappy thumbnails in the past, would you advise bothering to go back and change them or just focus on making the new stuff great? So this is a question as to the value of your time. Your older videos can be revived. So if you have a video that has really great audience retention, but has horrible click-through rate, and you have the time to update those thumbnails, you know that if there's more people who click through, that they're going to enjoy that content, it would benefit you to do that, because you know that higher click-through rate will yield high audience retention. Now, if you have a video that has poor audience retention and bad thumbnails, then changing the thumbnail won't really help your audience retention, and so it won't really help you. As a general matter, though, like if you don't have time, it's fine to just do it for new videos, because like for me, I'm improving every new video, so I probably won't go through all my old videos unless I get really bored one day. Rose says, I was advised by my MCN to do 3 months worth. Yeah, that sounds about right. Getting consistency is pretty important. As soon as I figure out what I want my brand idea to be, I'm going to probably go through all the cover stories and put a cover story branding on it. Oh, Ro considers me one of his favorite thumbnailers. I'm just throwing stuff at a wall. I have no idea what I'm doing. No idea whatsoever. Like if you look at my release schedule, I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, so looking at a few more comments before I end very quickly. Oh, yeah. So Ro asked, to someone who wants to actively do whatever the heck they want, I'm aiming for Zelda, just happens to be my favorite. Should I just keep uploading one niche? Is there a pattern from spamming a series? Well, my data clearly shows if you start getting good traffic on a particular niche, then YouTube will absolutely start using that as a gateway to other content within that niche. So like all of my Kirby covers pretty much suggest to each other. And so I'm getting these people who just like, they watch one and then they like, boom, 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 boom. They watch all the others right in a row. And I don't think that would have happened if I didn't have that playlist. I didn't have that series. And so, so okay, wow. Too Many Edits Vlogs asked me to do my best Kirby impression. This is going to be embarrassing. Poil! Man, I probably lost everyone. Everyone's just going to unsubscribe from my channel right now. So, yeah, I think it's like, it doesn't matter what it is, but when you get that, because I want to show you that on the niche thing. I want to show you Kirby02 doesn't get a whole lot of searches. I mean, maybe it's just because, you know, suggested video is just dwarfing it, but overall, it's not getting a whole lot of searches because it's not new, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas something like, let me do DDD. If I do DDD's theme, DDD, man, it also has a lot of suggested traffic, but search is like its second best. Earlier in the life of this video, let me just do the lifetime and then refresh. Earlier in the lifetime of this video, you can see that search had a lot more of importance in this video. And actually, you can see that a whole lot better if I come into this traffic sources graph and then I do DDD. And so I want to do lifetime of this video. And then I want to do that. And I'm going to, since daily is really tough to read, I'm going to do it by monthly. What you can see here is that search was the higher of the two for the first few months of the video's release. Oops, I went somewhere I didn't want to go. But suggested, just like, what is this? This is more suggested traffic than all the other traffic sources combined. This is just ridiculous. And so when what this suggested means is this could be anyone watching any Kirby videos, even if it wasn't like a DDD video. Like there's a DDD from Itoki Hana. Here is Chumu. I think it's Chumu. Is it Kumu? Chumu? And then, so this is like the gateway. People are watching other people, and then they come to me. Oh, to me. We are number one, but it's a Kirby, so Perform a King D. Like, people weren't necessarily searching for me for these, but it still led to a lot of traffic. And then you see the all my videos suggesting each other kind of lower on the list. So yeah, definitely, Daniel. If you are getting this from Zelda arrangements, you will want to capitalize on that. Now, as Ro mentions, Zelda's broad. I think it'll be interesting to see how far YouTube's algorithm goes in suggesting different, like, will they only suggest one game, or, you know, it's like character specific, or will they just suggest all Zelda content to each other? Because, like, I can say, you know, all my Kirby covers are pretty much from different games, but they're all suggesting each other. So YouTube's seeing Kirby and saying different games must matter to each other. But I don't know how well that would apply to maybe Zelda or something like Final Fantasy or something like that. So anyways, this has been going on for around an hour, and I definitely have covered all the things that I wanted to cover today. So without any other questions, I am going to end this and see you all next time. So the archive will be up here. So if you missed any part of this, you can go back to the beginning and see anything you missed about impressions, click through, and how you can use it. Please feel free to leave comments or reach out to me on Twitter or wherever and share with me. Are you seeing similar trends? Are you seeing that within the first couple of days that only a certain percentage of your subscribers have impressions? Is this worrying to you? Is it too low? Is it too hot? I mean, what do you think? Leave me a comment. Thanks.